Adventure Ho, Lumineers! Welcome back to another episode of DuckTale Dads. I'm one of your hosts, Ryan. I'm joined by Mack and Nathaniel, and today we're going to be talking about a whole lot of news. We didn't do it last week. We're going to do it this week. There's a whole lot that's come out in this week. We got Set 8 releases. We got Set 9 and beyond. We got a whole bunch to talk about. So before we get into all that, as we always start with, Mac, what's new in your world?
Yeah, new in my world. Happy belated Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. Ryan, Nathaniel, hope your wives had a wonderful day. And then to all the listeners out there, all the mothers out there, happy belated Mother's Day. What's new in my world is exactly that. We had a pretty significant Mother's Day celebration. We had my wife's parents, my whole wife's side of the family. So my little one, two of his cousins. So they got to play around in the nice weather outside, running around in the backyard on the swing set. So that was fun to just watch them, be tiny humans and have just spread joy around the whole family. But yeah, it was we had a nice 3-4 hour Mother's Day celebration that it was nice to have everyone together. So new in my world, big Mother's Day celebration. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers listening.
Yes, happy Mother's Day to all. Nathaniel, what's new in your world?
I'll stay on brand and do one Lorcana and one personal life. Personal life thing is my oldest son he's been playing baseball for a couple weeks. He had his first game tonight. It was super fun to watch, and kind of encouraging him to actually run as fast as he can when he's running the bases. So he sometimes gets distracted and is kind of like, looking around a little bit. It's a lot going on. So, seeing them learn things and seeing them how to learn how to play sports and everything, it's a lot of fun to see that joy and everything come out. On the Lorcana side, and we'll talk about this, I'm sure, in a little bit more here, but I did participate in my first set champs of this current set. That was a ton of fun. It was actually at the location where I won my only ever set championship, which was last set. So it was cool to go back there, see some familiar faces, and I did okay. So that was cool too. So overall, had a great weekend and enjoyed and remembered the anticipation, the hype, and the competitiveness that comes out during set champs for sure. So yeah, Ryan, how about you?
Quick brief aside, quick question, follow-up question for you, Nathaniel. As Ernie, we briefly joked about with Ernie, the bounty for the champ map. Did you have to give up your set 6 champ map, or were you successful again in getting another championship map?
No, I was not able to reclaim the title, but my scar mat is safely on my wall still, safely in his case.
All right, so no one collected a bounty on you. Great, love to hear it. Love to hear it. What's new in my world? Weather's nice. The weather's nice here in Minnesota. I love this season of weather where it's nice and warm outside. Some people may think it's a little too warm, but I'd rather have this than 20 below. So I'll take it, and I'm not going to complain on both ends of the spectrum here. And that also means that my yard is growing, and that with that comes a lot of weeds. Apparently, this year is dandelions heaven in my yard. I don't know what I did wrong or what I need to do differently, but we'll figure it out. So that's the yard projects, I'll call them, are piling up. So got to take care of the weeds, got to fix a door in a shed, got to do this, that, the other thing. But we're just enjoying the nice weather and making the most of it while we have the opportunity to. So we do want to start with Set Champ season. So let's go back to your news, Nathaniel. Tell us about your experience. What you saw out there, what the meta was that you saw. Are you going to switch it up for future set championship participation, or what are you thinking? What's going through your mind right now?
I'll say this. I went through the whole gambit, I think, of feelings, thoughts, afterthoughts, everything. So I'll go from the beginning. One of the things that was my favorite takeaway is I played, let's see here, 5 rounds, sorry. And every single deck was a unique combination of colors. So not only because you could run,
Wow.
right? Like you could run a more like Sapphire Ruby, right? You could do like Sapphire Ruby items. You could do Sapphire Ruby half shark shenanigan actions, right? Not even like that level of differentiation. I mean, like every single time was a different color combination for all the rounds. So I started against a Ruby Steel player, was able to beat that, played a Ruby Amethyst player, lost to that, played Steel Song, beat that, and then played Emerald Steel, beat that before. There were only 10 players there, so one other observation here, while the deck diversity has increased, it does seem like overall participation in set champs is down relative to last season. I think part of that is based on the fact that it's May. It's a very busy month, I think, for a lot of people. It's the end of the school year. It's starting to get nice out. There's just a lot of stuff going on, I think. And I do partly think that there could be some semblance of like you have to get first to get a mat now, and I think that does impact some people. I have my own thoughts about that. We can talk about that later though. But yeah, so it was 10 people, so it was top cut to 4. I was the top seed going in. So they didn't do seeding to determine who got to go first. So I lost the dice roll, as I always do, and was on the draw. I won game 1 against a Churn of Dogs deck. I was proud of that. My favorite play of the whole weekend was actually something that I had done in practicing against our friend Evan while we were camping. Right, we had play tested up north, and it was I saw the Chernobog, coming. So on turn 4, I played a crab, knowing that turn he would play that on the next turn, so I could on turn 5 play Elsa, exert it, hit it with the crab, give something else challenger. So he didn't get any value from the Chernobog. Like it got banished before it could even quest or do anything. So that helped me win game 1, but game 2 and 3, I think it showed me that it's important to know some of the diversity even within a particular deck build, right? Like there's some variance in the Churn of Dogs build as well, and I didn't practice against this evasive version of it with the baby Pegasus and the big Pegasus shift line, and he hit that for sure in games 2 and 3. I think he might have also hit it in turn 1. I just had the answers in the first game. I didn't in the last 2, and unfortunately I lost. I did make one minor error in terms of letting him swing in and getting some Rapunzel value, which kind of steamrolled. But I think for the most part, I did what I could hope to do. And I think, and the reason I share specifically when I crashed out in the semis, right, is because coming out of that, I was like, wow, that deck's really, really good. Like I knew it was good going in, but now it's like, this is the cheat code, right? Like maybe I'll run that for my next set champs, right? Like just going through the whole, like, I got beat by this and I'm going to run that. And I talked to Ernie, who we had on the pod last week, and he did a nice job of kind of talking me down and being like, okay, sometimes decks just go off, right? They hit these amazing lines, and that can happen. And if that happens, you just say, okay, oh well. All in all, I had a winning record. I'm proud that I was the top seed going into the semis. But I think I still feel great about my purple steel combo, so I'll probably run that again. And I think it's been fun seeing that change. But I think the best part of the whole experience was the fact that it felt truly diverse. Because last set, when I won that at that location, there were so many purple decks, and 3 out of the top 4 were purple steel, and I think 7 or 8 of the 16 or 15 people were running purple steel. So I think seeing this really wide variety of decks being played is really, really cool. And if a Hiram ban was what it took, I think that has been very successful in terms of having the game feel like there's a lot of great variety happening. And the guy who won it was the Ruby Amethyst player. So I lost to the guy who got runner-up, and I lost to the guy who won during Swiss rounds. He won the whole tournament, so that was cool.
So would you say the key to a diverse meta is to ban one of the most staple cards 3 weeks prior to set champs starting?
Well, I don't know. I think what's funny, right, is I think we usually look at the course of a season and we think about how it always changes. Like there's a couple decks that are kind of popular towards the front end of a new set, and then by the end of the set, I think I've heard it described as like we settle in to like the meta. And there's a couple decks that perform really well at a couple big tournaments, and those seem to be run a lot. And to your point, maybe the timing of doing it so close just has made it so people haven't like cracked the code yet in terms of like, hey, this one is just so much better. Or maybe truly we are at a point right now where it is just pretty balanced. And I stand by, I think what I'd said earlier is right now, if you have a deck combination that you're really comfortable with, and it's not like silly, I think you really can make a run at a set championship because it is that open.
That's incredible. That is absolutely incredible. I'm really, really glad to hear that. I'm hopeful that any set champs in the future are also maintaining that level of diversity. I'm hoping. What I kind of saw last set was there was this one really good aggro deck, the Amber Steel Diggy Diggy Hole with the dwarves and Dwarven Mine, or Seven Dwarfs Mine, that kind of like was maybe a thing for local meta heading into set champs. They did really well first weekend, and we saw more of it on the second weekend, and I feel like I just saw that number of people playing that deck, or the number of decks that or the number of times that deck was topping set champs, would just exponentially increased as set champs progress. So I'm hopeful that diversity persists rather than having this new aggro variant, this Chernadogs aggro variant kind of swarming and taking over the meta a little bit. Because let me tell you, playing against that shift line, practicing against it, oh boy, if they hit that, I don't know if anything can slow it down and stop that train, because that is a freight train rolling down the tracks.
Yeah, Turner Dogs is one too that I haven't really had much practice against myself. So as the popularity of that specific deck seems to rise, especially over the course of the first 2 weekends of the set champ season. This next weekend in a tournament that we're all gonna hopefully play in together here, and we'll get into that in a second. But man, if I see that deck, I am just good luck to myself, right? Like I am not prepared to play against that deck, so we'll see how it goes. And I guess that's the benefit of the meta that we're in right now, right? Because you have that opportunity to see all the variety here, and I think overall that's a good thing. So it feels a little bad as we personally can't practice as much. We're going in blind more so than I feel like I felt last set. So here we go. Let's see how we do. But I want to follow up on the point you made, Nathaniel, on the number of participants. You said it was quite low compared to what, at least your experience from last set so far. Do you think the holiday weekend had something to do with that, or do you think this is a greater concern? Maybe, I don't know, of where we're at in the state of the game. I guess besides what you have explained in the number of participants in this last tournament, I think with the recent news, which we will get in here shortly, I've felt a lot of excitement in the game, especially moving up into set 8 and 9. I'm curious to get your thoughts on why you think the popularity was lower, or if it was just simply because it was a holiday weekend, because I feel like it's kind of been about average. At least the first weekend seemed to be about average that we've seen compared to previous sets as well.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things at play. The first, I think, is that yes, it was Mother's Day weekend. I think there were actually a couple tournaments being held on Mother's Day.
Oh no, there was a couple on Mother's Day. There were a lot on Saturday, the same day of yours.
Yeah, and so I'd actually asked around, and actually someone who we'll be having on the pod very soon, Christian's wife Hannah. For those who don't have not been acquainted with Hannah, she was actually at this tournament. She was on her way to another set champs that was happening, got stuck in traffic, and then diverted and came to this one. So that's the benefit, I guess, of having multiple on the same day. But that one ended up only with 10 as well. That was Sliver King, and I think last set they had over 20 at that one. And then I think Fox Den had theirs, and I think that had pretty decent turnout.
I think Fox Den had 24, so they had a full top 8 cut.
So I mean, I think part of it was the storm of it's Mother's Day weekend, and there were other locations, a fair number of other locations holding their set champs. I think May is just tough in general, and I was asking some of the participants at my set champs what they thought, and there does seem to be this general consensus that the first year a TCG comes out, there might be a lot of hype around it. There might be a lot of participants. I think I looked at some of the numbers on Melee of some of the first set champs during, I think that would have been Inklands was the first set that did it.
Yeah, it was the Rockstar Stitch promo.
Yeah, okay. And some of these locations had 40 plus participants at them, right? So I think we think of in our Twin Cities area, a given set champs, if they have over 20, that's quite good. And then some of the more popular ones might have 30-ish, I think was one of the higher numbers I've seen the last couple sets. So I think we've seen a little bit of a drop there, but I do think I would be really interested to see some of the participation numbers for the other weekends in May, just to kind of get a sense for if it is maybe a bigger overall drop or if it's just a May thing. Because the other part that we're comparing it to, right, is last set champs was it January, February? So
January, yep.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, I don't know about you, but it's pretty easy to go inside and play a card game when it's -10 in Minnesota versus when it's 80. So I think that there is something probably to that as well. I think for me, I still want to be able to go to a few each round if I can. And so I'm really excited again to be able to go to one where all of you guys are going to be at. And they did the same thing they did last set at this next one where they have a limited capacity space. And so, they still hit their numbers to fill that whole field out. So it could just be that it happened to be Mother's Day weekend and the Loons were playing as well at the same time as the set champs too, to be fair. So I don't know. I was a little bit worried that we might not fire based on what I was hearing initially. And I just think it's that's a little nerve wracking, right? For a set champs to not fire in a place that does have, I think, as healthy of a player base as we do in the Twin Cities. And I'm with you, Mac, right? Like, I know some people, based on some of the news, the latest news have been a little bit, anxious about it, but I'm super excited too. And some of these card reveals have been great. Like, the future of the game to me feels really bright, and I want to continue to try to get promo cards that set champs. Some of the new mats are looking unbelievable.
Oh my gosh.
Right? Like, and yeah, like that was another cool highlight from the weekend was getting my hero promo enchanted too. Of course, I think it's a really cool card. But I think one of the other things that I'm also noticing is it feels like people are a little bit less enticed by the participation promo cards than they were by the chance at either a championship mat or a runner-up mat. I think there is something to that.
Yeah, get into that. Well, I mean, I think that's a good segue here.
Yeah.
Soapbox, here we go. Lay it out there.
I'll try to make it as, don't want to sit here and monologue the whole time. I'll try to make this as succinct as I can. But I think the decision to remove the runner-up playmat for set champs and replace it instead with 40 participation promo cards to each location. In theory, I understand what Ravensburger's doing. I think it's cool to like give more prizing out to everyone who's participating in set champs. I think that's a good thing. I think the prizing structure has changed in the game as well, and this is why I kind of go back to Inklands, right? Because I wasn't even around the game yet, but my understanding is you cut to top 8, you play a top 8, and the winner, well, I guess this also depends on your numbers, right? But if you think about like a top 8, you cut to top 4. The top 4 got the promo enchanted card. If you won your top 4 match, you got guaranteed a mat, whether it was the runner-up or the champion, right? And then the winner of that upgraded from mat to champion mat, right? So each round, starting with the top cut, you got an additional prize, so to speak.
You earned more throughout the way.
You earned more prizing. And the situation that we have now is, and I've read stories about this too, where people will get into the top 8 and they'll just scoop. They'll just say, like, I'll just take my promo card and save the time because I have to win the whole thing to get any more prizing, right? And you shouldn't just do set champs for prizing, right? Like, and if that's your thing, great. But like, I personally think like it's partly the experience, right? Like if you don't win the whole thing, it shouldn't be the end of the world. Or if you don't necessarily get like the promo card, right? Like I don't think that should like ruin your whole day. But I think now that we're in this situation, what you can run into, right, and why people are scooping is, say you're in top 8. And you're the lower seed, and you're at a location that does it based on seeding, so you know that you're going second. Maybe you're running a more aggressive deck, and that's really hard for you to win on the draw against like a strong player that you know you're going to play against. Whatever, right? But you could win your quarterfinal matchup, you could win the semifinal matchup, get to the final, and lose. So now you will have spent an extra 3 hours at the store, right? An hour on the quarterfinal, hour on the semi, hour on the final. If you lose that, you got nothing more than if you had just scooped in the top 8. And I think unfortunately that's like a not a great incentive, personally, my own opinion. So I think Ravensburger should take a look at that, because I think people, and to be fair, part of what happened here is people would just scoop in the final sometimes. Like maybe they'd won a set champs already and they just said, hey, you can have and they do some like gentlemen's agreements, right? Like you can have the champion mat, I'll take the runner up. But I think that type of thing is better than people just not even playing their top 8 because they're like, I have to win the whole thing to get anything more. Like a tiered prizing structure, I think makes a lot of sense when you're into that top cut. So my long way of saying, as I said I wouldn't do, my long way of saying, I think they need to bring that back. And I don't know if that ever will come back, but I think that does potentially deter some people because like I remember sitting there at the same store that I was just at this weekend with Ryan, when I got to the final, it was actually a huge relief because it was like once I got to the final, I knew I was going home with something.
You got a mat.
Like I'm gonna get a playmat. So there was actually like I was like sitting there like chatting with Ryan and his buddy, like this other guy's buddy, like while I was playing him. Like I was kind of relaxed, at least more relaxed in that match, I think, than I was in the semifinal.
I think that's fair to say. I will back that up and say that is very fair to
like
say.
I was
You were much more relaxed in the
yeah.
final than in the semifinal when
Yeah.
you were not slow playing intentionally, but methodically thinking through every single decision that needed to be made.
Yeah, like I was sweating during the semifinal because I was like, oh my gosh, like this is my first opportunity to get a playmat like from a set champs. Oh my gosh. But once I crossed that, it was just like, okay, now I can just like have fun here, and if I win the whole thing, I win the whole thing. And it was like a huge weight off me. But I think now, if you get into a final, if you can be calm, great. But I think I would be like really anxious now because it's like now it's everything, like all this whole day, 5-6 hours more or maybe more of playing. If I lose, it feels like you've lost so much more. And part of why I also say that is we have another great player in our area. His name's Lance. I hope that we get to have him on the pod at some point as well. He got runner-up, and he'd said like it felt really bad because like I performed so well when it made it all the way to the final, but then if you lose in the final, it feels like you just didn't earn more than if you had just, again, lost right away in the top 8.
Yeah, and I think I want to echo the fact that you mentioned a tiered pricing structure, and I think that's really important to reinstitute. And some stores are stepping in as I don't think it was ever officially stated, but the community kind of got the gist of like, hey, Ravensburger's pulling back the tiered pricing structure, so now it's on the stores to kind of implement that if that's going to happen. And so some stores are implementing some level of tiered pricing structure, but I do think that it is important, and I think it would be a positive change to institute some type of tiered pricing structure back into the Set Champs promo kit that Ravensburger sends out to each of the stores. So whether that's, maybe they have an extra alt art card, so you get both the enchanted promo card plus then another alt art card that's nice and shiny to get top 4 and then so on and so forth, or whatever that looks like, but some sort of tiered pricing structure in order to make that worthwhile, to make it feel like you've earned that next tier of pricing, then you play again, you earn the next tier of pricing. I think that's a very interesting point and a very important thing that I support, and I agree with you on that for sure.
Yeah, and I think I agree with you there. Like the ownership is definitely more on the game store now. Just kind of reiterate your point here. I think something to be aware of, though, this is the first Set Champs season of this new structure. So part of me feels like stores themselves aren't really used to it yet and really haven't developed the prize support structure that they may want to implement in future Set Champs. So that could be something. Part of it, too, now that I'm thinking about it throughout this conversation, is back to, you mentioned the Rockstar Stitch, a year ago, the Inklings, the very first Set Champ season, right? I wonder if supply has increased so much in terms of stores participating in a Set Champs kit, at least within our area, that first, there might have been only 5 stores within our area. So therefore, it's more likely you're going to have higher quantities of people there, so 40 people there, whereas now you might have 10 to 12 stores participating, and so it kind of just, dissipates, and there's an even attendance throughout the stores that of players where we're seeing the lower numbers, but overall we might be seeing a similar overall participation, but it's just due to the higher supply of stores giving out a Set Champs as well. That could be something. Like you said, we are thankfully participating in one this weekend that has a full cap. Granted, this cap this store only does 16 people, so we'll get into that. But the 16 out of 16 are filled in, so we'll have a full slot there. But last point I want to make on this is I wonder too the hesitancy, or maybe that's not it. The what seems like the lack of assertiveness that Ravensburger has had over the past couple months when it comes to announcing worlds and DLCs. I think that could have just slowed the momentum specifically for this set. If you remember back in set 6, just before or at the very early parts of set 6, I think it was the weekend before set 6 set champ season, that was
Yeah.
North America. So then
Yep.
everyone saw North American Continental, and everyone was like, these are all the meta decks. Thank you, everyone who have built these decks, the top players in the region. I'm going to go run those. So we saw a lot more excitement in set 6, whereas since then, there hasn't been a major tournament. So it's just like, what truly is the meta, and we're trying to frantically search the web based on some of these mid-tier events that have been happening over the course of the last couple months. And speaking for myself, and I think you guys are kind of in the same boat. We don't have a lot of time to theory craft, so we use a lot of what's out there and maybe throw in a couple tech cards here and there. So not having those resources of a DLC deck build or a continental deck build, at least for me, has been a struggle. Granted, I'm still addicted to the game, so Ravensburger will always have my money when it comes to this game at this point right now. So, but I can see that having kind of a lasting effect, or we're starting to feel those pains of just Ravensburger kind of being slow on the announcements of some of the more major events through the pro scene.
I want to do a little. I did a little quick sleuthing while you were making your points there, Mac. And in total, I think I looked at 5 stores. Those are the 4 stores that are in the Twin Cities, and then one up here in my neck of the woods. Um, there were, I think, a total of roughly 70 players out at Set Champs on the same day that you were at yours, Nathaniel. So there's a little bit of dissipation of concentrated players for that process. But I think 70 competitive players in the state of Minnesota on one day of Set Champs is roughly what we saw last set. It's just that everything on last weekend was so condensed into the one Saturday event. There were just a couple on Sunday, but then Sunday was also a conflict with the Mother's Day holiday, so
Yeah.
it's hard for people to get out for that. So then probably just everyone condensing everything into that one day kind of dissipated the player density for each of those events. So I'm curious to see what next couple of weekends looks like in terms of participation, and see if people kind of get back on track. Maybe we're in the same boat that many other people were, where it's like the first 2 weekends don't work for me. It's the beginning of the springtime. I have things for Mother's Day. I have things the weekend before Mother's Day to get ready for it. So now I need to get back into, and now I'm going to plan on the last couple of weekends for hitting my event. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
hopefully, fingers crossed that things still play out, because I am a third person that is excited for the future of Lorcana after the recent news from Ravensburger.
And that being said, given kind of the low popularity of this Mother's Day weekend, I think week 3 is going to be the most popular this upcoming weekend. I think that's when a lot of the major stores seem to be hosting, or at least it's spread out across our Twin Cities area a little bit better. There are more options, and with that, following the Mother's Day weekend, people who may not have been able to participate last weekend, me as an example, are going to be participating this weekend. And then the next weekend after that is Memorial Day weekend, where we see a lot of people, busy, in Minnesota as well, and taking advantage of the weather this time of year as well. So I envision this weekend being the most popular weekend of our Set 7. And so with that, we all 4 of us, or 4 of our 5 friend group, are planning to participate in one. So, and we're all attending the same one, trying to run it back as we did last set to see if we can all win a promo card. So what are your initial thoughts? What decks are we thinking? Nathaniel, it sounds like you're still going to run it back with your Amethyst Steel. Ryan, have you settled in on a deck? And how are we feeling going into this weekend?
I love this question, and I'm really grateful that you're bringing it up, because I am very curious, as after the last time we chatted, you were a little up in the air, and you were a little bit coy with revealing or not revealing what color combination you were on, Mac. So I have settled in on one. Been getting as many reps in on it as I can, thinking through maybe making a couple other tweaks, but still kind of waffling back and forth on it. But thinking Amethyst Sapphire, or Blurple as it's popularly called. Just, as Nathaniel mentioned earlier, just pick your bread and butter, pick whatever you're most comfortable on. If I am able to make it to Set Champs, this Set Champs event that we're all signed up for, then I think that would be what I'll be running, because that's what I'm most comfortable on. I've been playing for 2 sets, that's it, and that's what that's kind of what I've come back to now after taking a little bit of an aside at the beginning of set 7, trying to figure out and dive into a new ink color combination. But now I'm back on Blurple, and I think it's very strong. I think it has a lot of threats, and I think it has some very bad matchups, and I think it has some pretty good matchups. So I'm pretty confident with it, and hopefully I can hit the variants that I need in order to find success in a Set Champs weekend.
Yeah, I don't think Nathaniel wants to see you, based on what I've heard of your play testing. How's it going with against the Blurple, Nathaniel?
Yeah, I think
He did win one. He did win one.
We've talked about this a little bit. It's if you, depending on the type of build, like, right, you could run a lot of different Amethyst Steel builds right now. I think there's the more mid-range one with rabbits and friends, and that is the more like out resource your opponent. There is the lower to the ground dock build, where you could potentially have something even like a Maleficent, little baby 1-drop weenie. And there's the Jafar wheel, which I suspect might be what Mack is thinking about. But I don't want to spoil this fun. When I was playtesting, I've now playtested Ryan and Connor a little bit on them running their versions of Blurple and me running my version of Purple Steel or Amethyst Steel. And it's like, I think right now I'm 5 or 6-1 on the play, so that feels great. And I'm 0-7 on the draw. So I just have not cracked that code yet. It's a tough matchup, I think. And I don't think any deck has like a perfect, like, I can beat everything all the time, right? Otherwise, everybody would just run that. But yeah,
they did. It was red-blue before Hiram.
But I think that might be the one matchup where I would maybe not be super excited about, especially if I, as usual, get a really nice low dice roll, because my dice seem to really like anything that's 6 or under.
Ooh, love it.
Except when you choose to do low roll and then it happens to be 10, 11, or 12.
Right. Exactly, yeah, which is why I'll never do it, because I know I would get an 11 and it would just feel even worse.
Yeah, I am, because when we're at these Set Champs together, we want to beat each other. Like, that's it. Like, we always, when we're against each other, we want to beat each other. So I don't mean to be coy, but I do mean to be coy. I will spoil it. I am running the Jafar wheel. You guys have been trying to get me to do it for a couple weekends now. In my original Set Champs, the Set Champ starter episode that we did here, I talked about winning a hero, which I did in my first one, and then B, expanding my ink colors. And that was my own personal goal, and I'm just going to do it. I got the hero. I got what I went out for this Set Champ season, or at least the primary goal there. So to me, it's, let's just try it out. Let's see if the Jafar wheel works. I'm not as comfortable with it as I am with red-blue. I think I have the ideal play lines on how I want to play it out, but we'll see how it goes. I have very little confidence. Again, my goal is top 8 with a 16-player field. I think I can do it. But we've also never been to this store for a Set Champ, so I don't know how. I know it's a very close store. Like, the same people tend to show up every weekend. But with that, I don't know how competitive they get for just the Set Champs. So We'll see how it goes. We'll just run with it. And I'm excited to try it out, though. I've had a lot of fun with this deck. It's kind of like the ceiling is very high, obviously, getting upwards of 14 lore in one turn. But you can brick really easily, or if your kind of key shift lines or key early turn characters are removed from your board pretty quickly, then it can get a little bit dicey, but we'll see how it goes. I'm excited to try it out.
Yeah, and I think on that note too, right, about taking each other out at these set champs and how competitive we are as a friend group. And this actually ties into something that Ryan just said, because he was being a little bit, I think, humble. Ryan is a great Blurple player. The way he plays it, I'm really impressed at his just thought process, and I've actually learned from the way he plays it, just how I play in my matchups. And Ryan beat me in set champs at that location at the last set, right, to effectively knock me out of contention for, top cut. But it didn't, it was cool to see him do well. And again, great Blurple player. And that was a set champs too, where again, we were the first one we've ever been to where all of us were there and we all got top 8. So I think that still reigns so supreme for me in terms of my memory bank of Lorcana experience, that I almost have like unrealistic expectations for us for this one, because I'm like, we have to do it again, right? Like that was such a banner experience to get a picture with all of us with our promo scars. So I hope we can do well enough where we are, but inevitably I'm sure we'll probably see each other at some point, or at least one of us will match up, because if we are representing 4 of the 16 players,
Yeah.
math says that probably there's going to be at least one. It feels like we actually kind of veer on the side of seeing each other more than you would even expect whenever we're at something together. Because I know, even when it was just Mack, you, me, and Connor, I ran into Connor, and other times that we've played local, like weekly events where there's a subset of our friend group there, it feels like there's always at least one matchup where we see each other. So, I think it's fun to have that, and you try to, I think, bury some of maybe your own disappointment if you lose with happiness for your friend that at least they won. So, yeah.
Yeah, ultimately that's the goal. I think obviously we want to beat each other, but whoever ends up winning out of the matchup, you immediately become the cheerleader for that person, right?
Yes.
Because we understand though, because unless you run the table after that loss against one another, you're effectively out of the top cut. So then it's just like, all right, for the crew, we're going to do it. Thankfully, the one that we went to last set had really nice prize support. So with that, I was one of the 4 that made top 4. So with that and the prize support, we kind of went in with it too. Like we're gonna split up that prize support no matter who made top 4, and then so we all kind of got our money's worth, so to speak, in the entry fee. So that worked out nice going into it. This store, I don't really know if there's really any significant prize support besides the set champs box.
Promo kit.
So yeah, the promo kit. So just going in and see how it goes and try and get top 8 and see if we can match back-to-back promo cards, promo enchanted with all 4 of us. I think that's kind of the primary goal of our group with this next weekend.
Yeah, and I think that speaks to, we on the pod with Ernie last week, right? We talked about how cool it was for him, right, that his primary goal with this game is to make lasting and positive memories with his daughter. I think the fact that is kind of the thing that we think about as a friend group, right, is like the goal is that our friend group can get the promo cards. It's like we're not even necessarily thinking like, oh, one of us has got to win, right? And I think that's really special, that for us we all seem to really get such a great experience from the other people succeeding in our friend group and seeing them do well as well, like alongside each other. We I think back to the Perkins trip, run afterwards for dinner, and just talking about the experience together. I think the community in this game is so strong, but I think when you have a tight knit group, for anyone out there that has people that are passionate about the game that they interact with on a regular basis like we do, hold on to that. And I encourage you to like really give to that friendship what you can, because I think it's really special when you get to share a game like this with people. It's definitely my own joy in playing this game would still be there if I didn't have a close friend group, but it's made infinitely better because I have close friends who are also hyped with me, right? And I can hype them up, and they're hyping me up, and it just makes the whole experience, I think, just like 10x better when you have that.
It keeps me involved in the game. Like like we've alluded to before, we can't go out every week. We can't go out
Yeah.
even every 2 or 3 weeks. So like us just like messaging each other through Discord on new card releases or when the next DLC is going to be and what we think we're going to see during that. What decks we've been thinking have been really fun recently. You know, even just those simple messages keep us involved and keep us interested in the game. And I 100%, back you up and echo your statement on this. Is kind of the lasting impact, at least for me, and I think our friend group into this game is just us being able to, kind of take the ride and take the journey, together in this. And it's been a lot of fun.
Speaking of staying connected with the game, very briefly, 3 minutes or less, let's chat about set 8 and our initial reactions. Just want to know what you all are thinking are getting the most love and what might be falling by the wayside a little bit. I'll start. My initial thought, and I don't think Brennan DeCandio had a huge influence on set 8 card design because he wasn't hired yet when it was in development. But I couldn't help but thinking all of these tools that these aggro decks are getting, like does he have a signature at the bottom of each of them as well? It feels like very DeCandio influenced, just based on my very limited experience seeing what he cooked up with Diggy Hole. So, what are y'all's thoughts on initial set 8 reactions?
Just for our audience, Ryan, DeCandio is who?
Brendan DeCandio is was he a pro player? He was a former pro player. He officially got hired on at Ravensburger in some sort of like competitive play design of cards. I don't really know exactly what his title is there at Ravensburger, but he was a former pro player in set 6, which is the set that I joined the game. He was kind of the creator of the Diggy Diggy Hole deck or the Amber Steel aggressive version that kind of took over set championships in set 6 as the go-to aggro deck. That kind of was the low to the ground one that's going to go faster than everything else and get in underneath the big control decks. And so then he got hired on officially at Ravensburger sometime between set 6 and set 7, I think. And then with all this set 8 release stuff, I couldn't help but thinking like, man, this feels very, the flavor of DeCandio throughout a lot of these cards that are being released.
My initial reaction is once again, who let the dogs out? Because wow, after getting beaten by Turner Dogs in the set champs, which again I thought I was prepared for and I thought was a good matchup for me, so that did feel amazing. I looked at some of the recent card releases and there's going to be another new lady and another new tramp that are both lemon lime, amber emerald cards, and they are going to make that deck, I think, even better than it is right now. So I hope it doesn't turn it into what Diggy Hole was in set 6, where, to Ryan's point, it was kind of basically at this. It was so much better than other aggro decks that it was basically like, if you're going to run that archetype of deck, you are going to run Diggy Hole, right? Like it was just like, well, why play not the best aggro deck if one is clearly standing head and shoulders above the others? So I hope, for the sake of diversity in the game, that isn't the effect of this. I think there have been some really cool looking cards in some of these more recent reveals that it does feel like lots of different decks are seeing love, and I think that's a really positive thing. I can't wait for Mack to play a Lumiere and me to strength it immediately.
Yeah, we'll see if that makes a way in my deck. That is a pretty hype release for sure. I had 3 initial thoughts. First was, man, they're really going hard on this vanish keyword, and basically Jafar, right? And the franchise of Jafar makes sense because it's the reign of Jafar, right? But I think they're just narrowing in that anything that has to do with vanish is from the Jafar franchise, and specifically we see that in the Amethyst Steel combination. That was 1. 2 was there was a little bit of love last set, especially with Mushu on Ruby Steel, and I think they're trying to hype that up even more. I think initially with the start of this set, when I say last set, I mean this set, I guess. Now they're set 7. The start of set 7, that was like Ruby Steel got a lot of hype at the initial pre-release. It was like, oh my gosh, this is a combination that might actually be viable. We've seen it fall off. we've seen a little bit more popularity, but overall, I think it's still kind of the tier 2, tier 3 deck levels, not necessarily tier 1 or S tier, right? But I think we're seeing a lot more that can jump into that type of deck, and I'm excited to see how those decks start to build out. But lastly, I think one card that has continued to catch my eye is this Bambi Little Prince. This little amethyst Bambi card, I think, is just going to skyrocket hyper aggro. And Nathaniel, I can see this in a world in your amethyst steel build. This little Bambi, I think it's insanely strong. You gain a lore for free. I mean, the cost is 3 uninkable, right? But every time you play it, kind of like a white rose. I think this easily substitute white rose. Again, you gain a lore on play, and then it quests for 3. And if you're able to quest, great. But if not, if you're worried about it being banished, when an opponent plays a character, return this character to your hand. Yeah, so you can protect it and then play it again next turn and gain another lore. So I can see this. The only thing is it's the uninkable, right? Not only will it replace white rose, I see us filtering out of Merlin Goat. And I think this may mean Merlin Goat's set 9 news might not be a reprint. So we can get into that in a second here. But I'm actually more enticed to try a hyper aggro build with this Bambi. So this is the legendary card that I want 4 of, I think, in my initial my initial thoughts with the kind of the pre-release of set 8.
With 2 questions. Well, first and then a segue. First, with that in mind, if you pull an enchanted of that little Bambi, would you sleeve it and play it in your deck as the
Absolutely
4th
not.
copy?
Never touch it. Never touching it enchanted in my deck.
Okay, and then the second piece, you mentioned it. You talked about Goat not surviving rotations. Let's talk about Fable now. Fabled set 9, which is the next set after Reign of Jafar. Ravensburger had a ton of news and a whole cast about both Reign of Jafar and now Fabled into the future and even beyond that. So let's talk about Fabled and what y'all think about the rotations of sets in and out of the meta of the what did they call it? Core constructed, is that what they're calling it, or what are they calling it now? And then also I want to talk about the infinity constructed, which is the alternate format that they mentioned in their broadcast as well.
Yeah, I think one of the things, my first impression was listening to a lot of other content creators and just the general Lorcana community. It felt like a lot of the consensus after set 6 was it's too early for multi-ink or dual ink cards, and it's too early for set rotations. That was a lot of the sentiment I got coming out of set 6 when those rumors first started to even begin to get talked about. And now here we are, right, in only 6 months later after set 6, right? And we're playing with dual ink colors, and rotation is announced as going to be a thing. And one of the first people I asked this to was actually Ernie, and I think he had really great perspective. He was like, this is healthy in any card game to keep it fresh, to keep it diverse. I think I had some skepticism at first with what that meant, just in terms of like, hey, what does that do to like the value of my cards that like I've worked to actually get playsets of, right? But Ryan, I think you brought up a really good point where certain things that haven't ever been done again after a particular set are probably the ones that we think we would at least theorize aren't going to get reprinted. So for example, they haven't done an enter and leave effect card. So specifically like the Merlin cards since set 2, right? Like they get a benefit for being played and when they leave play in any capacity. And it just feels like that's maybe too powerful of an effect, right? To stay forever. There's been plenty of different types of like when this card enters, right? Or certain bounce mechanics maybe have happened with like the like Mana Mim and they've even announced future Mim cards, but it does feel like that is going on its way out, and that does make me a little bit sad because having now run purple for 2 sets, I love that card, but I think it does, and I think to Mack's earlier point, I think that is exciting, is this could potentially also encourage people to start thinking about different deck combinations, different color combinations that maybe they otherwise wouldn't have played, because I'm really comfortable on this deck list, and I'm really only ever changing out like 4 to 6 cards when a new set drops, right? And I think that this could change that for a lot of people, myself included. So I think that's another area where I've sort of been able to reframe my mindset around it and be more excited than disappointed with what we're losing, and be excited about what we're getting.
Ryan, your initial thoughts as I'm trying to gather my own right now.
My initial thoughts on rotations is I'm sad to see a lot of I'm sure I will be sad to see a lot of the cards go that will not make it in set 9 reprints. And I'm hopeful that, enough of the things that I really like are either going to be watered down and replaced by other cards, which they've already started doing a little bit. Which feels a little bad, but also you still get to kind of play with those mechanics. And the mechanic is what is the most fun, I think, of that process versus the like the card itself. But then the second piece is, adapting and figuring something new out and trying new things and growing and learning and this constant cycle of learning and discovery. It will continue, obviously, because it's going to have to when you rotate out, 800 to 1,000 cards out of each year, essentially rotating out 800 cards from core constructed play will require learning and growth and development and trying new things and always having that growth mindset and finding a way to adapt and learn something new and figure something else out, which will be fun. The other thing that I really am grateful that they're doing it this way is that any cards that are reprinted or are part of set 9, the Fabled set, and any sets beyond that for that matter that had a previous version or a previous card printed in a previous set that is now rotated out, the cards from those previous sets are still going to be eligible and legal for competitive play in the core constructed, in that the core constructed rotated format. So I think that's really good about preserving the value of the cards that you do have. You don't have to go buy the new set 9 product just to get a card with a number 9 on it versus a card with a number 1 on it, which is really good and really healthy, I think, and will retain much of their player base. So I'm glad that they made that decision, and I'm glad that's what they're doing to do. And so then again, I'm very hopeful that a lot of the cards that I already have, I don't have to rebuy, and therefore set 9 may be a very low cost set for me in particular, just because maybe I already have all the cards that I really wanted to play with, and I just buy, 8 to 12, or maybe even 5 or 6 different unique play sets of singles for that set, rather than going out and buying boxes and troves and packs and everything on top of that. So finding a different way to enjoy the game throughout set 9 will also be fun. But and then the opportunity to have kind of like take a step back financially and be like, you know what, I don't need to go get Fabled booster packs. I can wait and save that up for set 10 to really hit it hard when that comes out. Mac, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I can break this down into kind of like 3 sections, right? There's the store perspective, there's the collector perspective, and then there's the play perspective. I'll start with the middle one, the collector perspective. I think if it's something similar to like Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh or Magic, who a lot of these, if not all of them, all have this rotated style already within their scene. From a collector perspective, you'd think like, okay, my high value cards, where it's a shame I might not be able to play some of these anymore. It will the supply of especially if you kept them fine, in mint condition, the value of those cards will only increase over time. So I think that's kind of my initial thoughts there. Hold on to them. I don't think all of them, especially the Enchanteds, they're not reprinting Enchanteds. So that's key there. So if you're huge into collecting and worried about the value there, if you have the capacity to just hold on to those Enchanteds for a longer length of time, that my thought is those would just only increase. So that's the collector perspective. The store perspective, in our conversation with Ernie, kind of that we've had offline, and who has experienced this type of rotation, right, in Magic, he said it's only a benefit to stores. If you don't do rotation, then you have stores that need to keep older sets longer on their shelf. It consumes real estate within their store, and real estate within a store could just be money sitting on a wall. And with that, it forces stores to focus on the more recent sets, and you're able to churn out more product, which only increases, the profitability of a store, and which is only going to lead to more, a happier consumer, right? If stores are still able to stay in business, you're able to get
Yeah.
product and play the game. So kind of from that's the store perspective, is typically speaking a rotation really helps the store standpoint. And then lastly was the play style. I think from a competitive mindset here, there are two parts. Competitively, I've only seen positive things. All very highly competitive players are like rotations over time keep the competitive landscape in a healthy balance. Great. I think the one thing where I can see or would predict and or wouldn't be surprised of a potential drop off are your casual players. Players who might not have full play sets of a single card, and have invested some, good money into this game casually, and now are seeing it from the mindset that, well, if I'm going to have these cards and then I can no longer play them, what's the incentive for me to continue to play in this game if my cards are going to be rotated out in a year anyways? So, like, from a casual perspective, I can see where this could take a step back. That being said, I think Ravensburger has timed this purposefully and really well, in the sense that they're mirroring it with, I think 50% of Fabled is going to be reprints. So odds are a lot of the key cards over the previous. So the four sets that will be rotated are our first chapter, Floodborn, Inklings, and Ursula. So I think a lot of the key cards from those four sets will be a part of the reprint, right? They have introduced amazing promos for their Set 9 set championship, which is Maleficent Dragon, a key Set 1 staple. So there we know that that card is going to be a part of the rotation. And it's in a beautiful enchanted, so I want four of them. And with that, we're very close to 2026 at that point when Fable is released, kind of end of August, early September. And 2026 is when Pixar will start to be introduced into this game. So we're not that far away from Pixar, I guess is my point. And I think by having this wave of excitement of this reprint style with an amazing promo card for people to get into the set champs. The enchanted cards themselves look absolutely fantastic. We haven't gotten into the new rarities. There's
Great segue. Dive in, Mac.
Yeah, so we got iconic, and what was the other one? Epic.
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 And so one's lower than an enchanted, and the other one is higher than enchanted in terms of pull rates. So that just is more enticing for players. And then we're not that far from Pixar, which I think a lot of Disney fans are just so excited to get into this, what these Pixar style cards are going to look like in 2026. So I think there's room for hope. Especially, that's what's getting me excited, is getting to Pixar. Promo aside, I want this Meldragon. I want 4 copies, and I'm going to go hard for these 4 copies of the Enchanted Meldragon promo. But I am so excited to see what Pixar looks like once it's introduced into the game, at the start of 2026 and beyond. So that's kind of where I, divide these buckets into.
I think you made a lot of great points there. I do want to touch on the rarities again. So the top end of rarities in Lorcana, again, just to reiterate, Legendary is currently your, second highest. And then they added one which will be Epic between Legendary and Enchanted. So it'll be Legendary, Epic, Enchanted, and then Iconic being the rarest of rare is going to be the Iconic. And could you imagine the hype of pulling an Iconic at like a sealed pre-release? Or as a prize pack from a set champs, or heck, any time of day, any time of the set, just pulling an iconic out of a booster pack and thinking, "There's no way this is real. Like this is fake, right? This is a repackaged packet of cards, and this is not real. I can't believe this. I just think it would be incredible. I don't think it'll ever happen to me, but I think it would be incredible."
That card is going on my wall if I ever pull one. Like talk about not playing enchanted cards. Oh my gosh, the Epic is going in either on my wall or no.
Yep.
What is it? The
Iconic
is either going onto my wall or in a safe, and it's just staying there.
College fund. It's a college fund. I do want to move on to their announcements about worlds and future Disney Lorcana challenges or DLCs, because that's the last piece of Fabled news that they brought to us in their broadcast. So they announced the dates of this first cycle of World Championships being June 28th and 29th at Walt Disney World. And it is going to be a closed event. They also announced that, which personally I'm a little disappointed on. I was not going to make it to the event in person, but I know there's a lot of people in the community that were really excited because it was pitched previously as World's going to be a celebration of the game. It's going to be open to everybody. It's going to be a great prize wall. It's going to be great side events. It's going to be this huge culmination of a years or years more, 2 years of DLCs and growing the game and experiencing it together in order to provide this celebratory atmosphere for people to go join in and have fun. So I know there's a lot of disappointment in the community. I do think that timing of everything. I'm sure they couldn't secure a big enough area in order to get it done, so that they had to get it. They had to make it happen. They're making it happen with the competitors at Worlds. They're going to stream it and they're going to make the a whole new world promo card available in some capacity. Details to be released later. Side note, that whole new world promo card looks incredible. Have you seen the art for it? Holy cannoli.
Another reprint
Wow.
there too.
Yeah.
Also, I'll say this: I don't have any whole new worlds in my whole collection, and I've opened like a decent chunk of first chapter personally. Depending on how much that promo is worth or how accessible it is, I would love to play those cards. They're gorgeous. And I think that's a great olive branch that they're extending to everyone to say, hey, it's a closed event. We know it's a bummer, but hey, like, here's a tangible way that everybody will get to sort of be part of this. And I for one would love to get a playset if I can.
And I
Somehow.
don't know if it's going to be everybody getting to be a part of it. I don't know what the details are there. It might even just be a small subset of people are able to get a promo card. You enter a drawing or something for X number of promo cards. But I would also love to have one or four of them in order to have them in my play sets as well. 'Cause I also do not have any whole new worlds in my collection to play with. And then they also briefly mentioned future DLCs will be happening. So I'm curious what your guys' reactions are to both of those news events. And I do want to mention one other thing that I'm hopeful for future DLCs is that there's some sort of, you know, highly competitive arena for the Infinity constructed format, which we didn't talk a whole lot about, where all cards that they've printed in all of Lorcana history would be legal to play. So I think that'd be really cool to have this high competitive level to introduce and kind of explore how, sets 1 through 4 would interact and compete against more recent releases of the sets.
Yeah,
Yeah, Ryan, I think.
go ahead.
Go ahead, Mac.
Okay, I'll go. First, your first point, DLCs. They slipped, I think, in the stream in that announcement. I don't think they were fully supposed to make it aware, but it sounds like the first DLC for the next season is going to be in the fall sometime. And I think in between Fabled and Set 10, maybe it's right after Set 10, I don't know, but sometime like October-ish, November-ish is when people are thinking based on what was said during the stream. He said like something along the lines of later this year is when DLCs will start, meaning sometime in 2025. So I hope it's Midwest. I hope this is something that we can, live out our dream and attend and to go to one of these DLCs. I think it'd be really fun. But I'm really excited about that. But my main excitement right now is the whole. They're really making a point to have these promo cards just be absolute bangers with a whole new world for the World's promo. Set 9, Maleficent Dragon looks absolutely amazing, and then even this Set 8, Reign of Jafar. I don't know how competitively viable this Jafar promo card's gonna be, but it looks stunning. We didn't even
For
touch
art
on
alone.
the play mats with the Reign of Jafar and and what I'm assuming the Maleficent Dragon playmat is just going to look absolutely gorgeous as well with Set 9. I don't think I've seen any pictures on that, but the playmat will be something of Maldragon. So I'm just excited for all the promotional stuff that's coming out within the next couple of months of the game.
Yeah, I think, Mac, that also is a great tie into like Ravensburger hearing community feedback and making pivots, right? Like some of the promos that we've had more recently for set championships, as an example, with Mirabelle, Scar, to a lesser degree, because I think Scar is such a popular villain, but like not super playable card. Mirabelle, very much not really a playable card. and then for the most part, someone maybe out there is cooking up a Mirabelle build. I don't know, but Scar and Mirabelle, and then with Hero, right, being very much locked into like that Emerald Sapphire. Like it's good for some people, but like just not super like iconic in the sense of the game itself yet, or like highly playable cards. It does feel like this transition to like, hey, like the set champs for Fabled is a reprint, so we're kind of in line with that notion of like we're reprinting some cards, new art, beautiful art, and also a highly playable card. I think is a really positive thing, and I hope that that continues going forward. That like the set champs card, because that will also help everyone, right? It's cool because for people who want to play with that card, it's better for the value of the card if it's playable, right? Like it's just all generally good if it's a playable card. And if it's iconic character, even better.
Absolutely, absolutely. I am hopeful that DLC will be somewhat near us. There's a couple other, PPG Pro Play Games has a couple of events coming out. Hopefully, some of those are going to end up closer to us too when they broaden out and expand as well. So, like I said, let's keep our fingers crossed, Mac. Let's hope that we can all get to one of them eventually, and play some high competitive Lorcana. That'd be really cool. In the meantime, for all you listeners out there, be sure to check out our Instagram page and our YouTube channel for some additional content. We're working our way through a couple of snafus, I suppose, trying to figure out how to get content up on the YouTube channel a little bit more consistently. But feel free to check it out, and hopefully we get some more things out there for you. We're grateful for all of you. Again, a happy belated Mother's Day to all the mothers out there, and to everyone else, every one of your listeners and your mothers as well. Without further ado, though, that'll do it for today. Let's get the duck out of here.